I want to start off today with a super bold question. And that's, what would you do with 6 extra weeks this year? Really, think about it for a second. What would you do if you could reclaim 6 weeks of your year? How would you spend that time? Well, I'm going to share with you today how to make that happen. Because let's be frank here. You ever sit down at your desk? You're thinking, all right, today I'm going to knock out some important stuff. And like so many of us, what happens? You get stuck doing the same old boring, repetitive tasks. You send that same email. You type in that same information. You schedule that same kind of meeting again and again. And yeah, for so many of us, we feel busy. Sure, we feel busy. We've been doing things all day long. But when the day's over, it feels like you just spun your wheels. You start to think to yourself, did I even move my business forward at all today? That's the trap, isn't it? This constant grind, doing the same thing over and over and over again. Let's be honest with ourselves. It drains our time, drains our energy, and it steals us away from the kind of work that actually matters. But here's the bold part. What if it didn't have to be like that? What if you could actually work less? Yes, work less and even get more done. What if you had simple systems that handled the boring stuff for you? While you're able to focus on high-impact, creative, God-given work. The work that you are actually called to do. Well, that's what I'm getting into today. I'm going to talk about automating for freedom. And today I'm really talking about how to stop being a robot yourself and start stepping into your role as the visionary of your business. The visionary that God designed you to be. So lean in, my friend. This show is for you. We're going to find 6 extra weeks in your calendar this very year. Hello there. Welcome back to Grit and Growth Business. I'm Ralph Estep Jr. This is the weekly show to help small businesses really take their business to the next level. And I'm so happy that you chose to join me again this week. Now, if you missed last week's show, we talked about scaling your business for marketing. Picture this. We talked about throwing spaghetti against the wall. That's what so many people's marketing system is like. So if you missed last week's show, I'm going to encourage you to go check it out. You can go see all of our shows at gritandgrowthbusiness.com. Again, that's gritandgrowthbusiness.com. It's a great website. Go check it out. But today we're going to talk about getting 6 weeks of your life back. You might be saying, Ralph, that sounds great, but how do we even accomplish that? Well, we're going to go through automating for freedom. And I can tell you, I'm going to start with a personal story today because this has hit home for me. Remember when I first started my practice, it was about 2 or 3 years into it, I started to have a flood of new clients. Some of the marketing I was doing was actually working. And I remember at the time, man, the onboarding process was overwhelming. I truly felt like a robot. I was sending this email, creating this folder, this and that, and it just built up this constant state of resentment. I felt like I wasn't able to use my true talents. I was just an order taker. I was a clerical chief. And here's the thing I want you to remember. We weren't designed for drudgery. God designed us for something totally different than that. We were designed for a purpose. We're designed for that why of why you started your business. And see, our time is so precious. And it's a gift to us. But with that gift, we need to steward it wisely. We need to understand how to use our time wisely. So let's talk right now about the hidden cost of doing this manual work. We're really going to get to the point of reclaiming 6 weeks of your life. I promise you, you will have that in today's show. But let's talk about the hidden cost of doing manual work. The biggest one, the number one, wasting time. I found this statistic. I thought this was amazing. Small business owners report that 16 hours a week they spend doing administrative tasks. You might be a small business owner. You probably are if you're listening to the show right now. Ask yourself this question. How many hours a week are you spending on routine administrative tasks? If you're like me and like a lot of other small business people, it's 16 hours. Let's extrapolate that out. That's 832 hours a year. Guess what that is? That's 20 full work weeks. That's 20% of your work week is gone. And the problem with that, it leads to huge emotional tolls. You're exhausted. You feel like you can't get any rest because you're just constantly moving forward. You're doing all those repetitive tasks. I hear clients tell me this all the time. Ralph, I get done doing my work for the day. I eat some dinner if I'm lucky to do that. And then I'm on the computer doing invoices. I'm checking this. I'm doing that all night long. I'm ordering. That just leads to an emotional exhaustion, late nights. If you're not careful, and so many of us are guilty of this. Listen, I was guilty of this. When I first started my practice, it took a toll on my family. I talked a few minutes ago about those dinners. Hey, I remember missing many dinners. I remember at one point I came home for dinner and the kids looked around like, who's this guy? Truth is, and it was a sad state of affairs that day, the kids stopped expecting me to be home. And maybe you're thinking that right now. You're like, man, Ralph, I can't remember the last time I had a family meal with my wife and kids. It's a huge family toll of this time that we're wasting. And unfortunately, there's also a revenue toll. It cuts to the bottom line. If you spend your time constantly doing routine tasks, you're losing growth opportunities. I'll give you a great example of this. I had a landscaping client. We talked about this a couple seconds ago. Landscaping client, he was out cutting grass, doing edging, doing beautiful landscaping work all day long. He would get home late in the evening. Once he had a bite to eat, cleaned up, then he was on his computer. He had to do all those invoicing for the day. He had to post payments. And when he was finally able to automate a lot of these things, it freed up his evenings. He said, Ralph, I don't know what I'm going to do with all this time. He's like, Ralph, I got this whole buffer of time. And I want to say this because I want you to hear this. The key is not to prioritize what's on your schedule. That's part of it. But to schedule your priorities. Now, I didn't come up with that. That's Stephen Covey. He said the key is not to prioritize what's on your schedule, but to schedule your priorities. And we can learn from that. How do we schedule our priorities? How do we make the things that are important, those things on our schedule? So that's the first thing. Second thing, human error. Listen, we are all human beings. And I read this statistic. I about fell out of my chair when I saw this. It says that 88% of spreadsheets contain errors. Now, these are the spreadsheets created by human beings. And what does that lead us to? It leads us to a very true statement. Manual work isn't just slow, it's risky. Hey, if you're doing stuff manually, you're going to make mistakes. I was sitting in my office yesterday. It was a day off for me. I said, I'm going to get in here. I'm going to do some catching up work. I had a lot of stuff to accomplish. Next thing you know, I'm typing emails. I'm sending emails to the wrong person. It was manual work, and I was making mistakes. So it's not just slow, it's risky. And the problem is there are real costs associated with that. There's lost trust. Hey, if you send the wrong person the wrong stuff, you're going to lose trust with that person. And ask yourself this question. How many times have you had to rework something because you were rushing to get it done, weren't paying attention, it was wrong, and God forbid, the client got it, sent it back to you and said, Ralph, I think you made a mistake here. How many financial mistakes have you made? I've had clients that have overdrawn their payroll account because it got late in the evening and they forgot to process that transfer from their operating account to their payroll account. Next thing you know, there's bouncing checks, there's fees, all that kind of stuff. There's real cost with this. Not to mention the emotional toll, the embarrassment you feel when a client calls you out on something or you don't get something done. And then you're constantly living in this fear of making mistakes. So many of us have found that position too. Yesterday, as I was recapping what I got done, I said, I'm going to go double check my work now. And I spent about an hour going through the work that I had just done because I was so afraid that I had made a mistake. I've heard of clients double charging customers. And the way they finally fixed that was they automated things. See, automation is going to be the key to successful small business management. And Tim Ferriss said this, and I thought this was great. It said, never automate something that can be eliminated and never delegate something that can be automated. And I think there's so much truth in what Tim says here. It doesn't make sense to automate things that can be eliminated. We'll talk a little bit later in the show about how to eliminate things, but never delegate something that can be automated. It doesn't make sense to send it to somebody else just because you don't have time to do it. If there's a way to automate that, as Tim Ferriss says here, go do it. So that's the second thing. Let's move on to the cost number 3. These are the cost of doing everything yourself and manual stuff. And that's a bottleneck. This was a statistic I thought was really amazing. 43% of owners say growth is capped because they do everything. You might be saying, Ralph, I am right there. I am one of the 43%. Sign me up for that. And I'm going to tell you right now, when I first started my practice, I was right there with everybody else. And it makes sense if you think about it, because if everything depends on you, if every little last detail, every single piece of the cogs in the wheel of your business depend on you, Your business is never going to outgrow you. It's capped. There's a limit on how much it can do. And when that's the case, when you live in that reality, you've lost so many dollars. You've missed sales. You've delayed opportunities. Your business is stagnant. It's only growing to the amount of time that you can put into it. And as we talked about earlier with that first hidden cost, this leads to emotional tolls as well. You feel like your business isn't getting anywhere. When I coach small business clients, and I'll talk a little bit later in the show how you can work with me to help you with your small business. One of the chief complaints people say in small business is, Ralph, I was growing. And then all of a sudden, I just hit this plateau. It feels like I can't get any further, Ralph. And for so many business owners, they live in a state of constant overwhelm. They've got this to-do list that keeps growing and growing and growing. And they get to the end of the day or they get to the end of the week and like, Ralph, I'm just not getting stuff done. I had this client that had a boutique shop and she knew every holiday she would be overwhelmed with sales and she lost thousands of dollars because she wasn't able to keep up with the demand. But she was finally able to automate it. She actually put up a website and she put an online sales center. Guess what? She doubled her sales with automation. She didn't have to touch the stuff. She procured it. She put it on her website, made sure it was available. She knew what her customers wanted, and she was able to drop ship that stuff. Didn't even have to bring it into the boutique. And she doubled her sales. And I just think that's amazing. So Michael Gerber said this. He said, if you want to scale, if you truly want to scale, you got to systemize. Without systems, growth will break you. And I talked about that a lot in the show a few shows ago about building systems. If you missed that, I encourage you to go check it out. Again, you can catch all of our shows at gritandgrowthbusiness.com. But Michael nails it. If you want to scale, you've got to systemize. Because what does he say? Without systems, growth will break you. And listen, I've dealt with so many small business clients who have reached the point of burnout. Why? Because it was all about them. They were the complete fire. And when they started to get tired, when they started making mistakes, man, that is a self-defeating situation. Well, let's talk about the fourth and final area of hidden cost when it relates to doing things manually. And that is what I've just alluded to a second ago. That's that constant feeling of being spiritually and personally drained. This is that emotional toll, that fatigue. I've met so many small business owners that live in this constant state of fatigue. You can look at them. It's on their face. It's how they present themselves. So many small business people are irritable. I hear them on the other end of the phone. They call, they've got an issue, and they're like, Ralph, I can't believe it. And I'm like, calm down. I'm like, well, you don't need to tell me. And it's a shame because that's not the character of who these people are. But they're spiritually and they're emotionally drained. They're irritable. And when you live in that constant state of emotion, you also experience decision exhaustion. You can't make good decisions. Listen, if you've ever been in business for yourself, maybe you're listening right now, you're like, Ralph, I get it, man. I've had that fatigue. I've had that irritability, and I got put up to make a decision, Ralph, and I blew it. What a terrible decision. And see, it doesn't just affect you. It doesn't just affect your business. It affects your family. I've talked about that on the show before. It affects your spouse. You're not able to give what your spouse needs. Listen, that marriage relationship is so very critical. That relationship with your kids, we talked about that a little while ago. When you come home for dinner, your kids are like, who is this guy? Where's this guy coming from? Your kids are just getting leftovers. Your wife is just getting leftovers. That is not a long-term strategy to be successful in business. And it leads to spiritual toll as well. I don't talk a lot about the spiritual side of this. I do 2 other shows about spirituality, but I needed to mention that today. There's a spiritual toll to this. There feels like there's no joy in your business. Raise your hand right now if you're thinking, Ralph, I've lost the joy in my business. And I talked about that a few episodes ago when I talked about what happens when you hate your business. And I've coached so many small business clients that have gotten to that point where they just hate their business. And there's no joy, there's no prayer life because you're constantly putting out fires. I've had so many clients that have said, Ralph, my business is successful, but it's joyless. Yes, I'm making money, Ralph. I'm paying my bills. And man, there is no joy in this. I'm so stuck in the drudgery. And I was able to help them automate things, and it was finally able to restore. I had one client, he said, Ralph, it was so cool. I got to go to church on Wednesday night again. And I was like, that's awesome. I said, how'd you do it? He says, I started to automate stuff. I didn't have to spend every week an hour doing stuff in my business that I could automate. So today, that's the whole goal. Now, listen, I'm not a big fan of Arianna Huffington. Politically, I disagree with her immensely, but she had this quote about work, and I thought this was perfect. It said, work should serve your life, not consume it. Again, that's Ariana Huffington. Not a big Ariana Huffington fan, but she nails it on this one. Work should serve your life, not consume it. You might be saying right now, Ralph, listen, you don't know what it's like to be a small business owner. I've been doing this for 30 years. But when your work consumes your life, you're just serving that. You're not serving yourself. Not painting a pretty dark picture. But if you're like most small business owners, you're feeling exactly what I'm feeling. You're saying, Ralph, you're preaching to the choir today, dude. So I want to talk about some principles of automation to help you get past this point. I want to show you how to do the work once and let the tool do it 1,000 times. Are you ready to do that? Well, let's jump into it. Before I get to that, though, I want to tell you, for each and every episode of Grit and Growth the Business, I prepare an action sheet. You can download that action sheet. It's going to talk about all the things we talked about on the show today. You can do that at gritandgrowthbusiness.com/action. Go get that action sheet. Again, that's gritandgrowthbusiness.com/action. Like I said, there's an action sheet for each episode, so you can listen. You don't have to take notes. You'll be able to see the process that we're going to go through right now. So let's jump right into it. The first step, you're going to laugh when I tell you this one. I'm calling this the drudgery audit. Well, you have to identify what to automate. If you don't know what to automate, how are you going to fix it? So here's my challenge. And I just did this in my own practice about 6 months ago. Keep a notepad or put a phone list on, and 1 week, just keep track of every single thing that you do. Write down every repetitive task, whatever those things are. Maybe you're sending the same email. Like, Ralph, I keep sending the same email over and over. Somebody inquires about my services, and what do? I send them, hey, thank you for inquiring about a service. You can automate that stuff. I'll talk a little bit later about how to do that. Maybe it's scheduling. Maybe you're taking phone calls all day long to put people on the schedule. Well, there may be some ways to automate that. So many small business owners are stuck in social media abyss. There's ways to automate that. Maybe it's reports. Maybe it's creating those invoices. You're that contractor that every night when you get home from working all day long, you have a bite to eat, you clean up, and now you're back on that computer doing invoicing till midnight. But you got to write those things down. Figure out what those drudgery things are. And then at the end of the week, once you've done that for a week, maybe do it for 10 days, circle the top 2 drains, those things that are really sucking the life out of you. Because Peter Drucker said this, and I thought this was perfect. You can't improve what you don't measure. I say this on the show all the time. What gets measured gets done. So it's got to start there. Start with that drudgery audit and determine where you're spending your time. So that's the first step. Second step, start small. Pick one of those tasks, one of those things you found in that drudgery audit. Don't try to automate everything at once. I've had small business clients that I've coached with. We had our first meeting. We started talking about some of these things. And the next week, they're like, Ralph, man, I can't believe it. You've overwhelmed me. I said, what did you do? Well, I've tried to automate everything. Well, that's not the right answer. You can't do it all at once. It wasn't broken in one day. You're not going to fix it in one day. Look at that list. Look for things that you're constantly repeating, things that cost you more than 30 plus minutes a week, that don't require any creativity. If they're creative, I don't think I'm going to put them on this list. For example, we talked about emails. You can create email templates. Hey, when somebody inquires about your business, you can shoot them back a template. Now, make sure it doesn't sound like something that AI wrote. I've seen so many of those lately. Pay attention to what you're sending out, but you can take some time and make it impactful. Maybe some quick reply emails. Hey, I got your proposal. I'm working on that. Or hey, this, that, whatever those things are. There are some great software choices. One of them is called Trello. I actually use a software called Asana. That's ASANA, has checklists built into it. I use that with my podcast production team. I do 3 shows. We got to keep things organized. But those are the things you can do. So start small. Just find one task and automate that thing this week and see how much time you can free up. And then step 3 is use tools that do the work for you. I'm a big fan of technology. I'm a big fan of automation. That's what this whole show is about today. But use tools that do the work for you. I don't know how many small business clients have said to me, Ralph, all day long I'm on my phone scheduling. I used to do the same thing. I used to have somebody in my office, that's all they did was schedule and answer the phones. Well, guess what? We live in a different world now. People anticipate being able to schedule online, and there are some great tools out there to do that. There's Calendly. We actually use a product called Acuity. There's a bunch of different ones out there that you can get. You can put them right on your website, and guess what? People can schedule. You don't have to talk to them. That's a great thing to do. Another thing, we talked about that social media abyss. there's a way to buffer these things so they can be sent later. Maybe you pick a certain time each week, you spend an hour, you create all your social media messages for the week. Now, I'm not saying social media is not valuable. I really do believe it is. I did a show about that, about true followers versus real revenue. You can create those things ahead of time. My production team does that with all of our shorts and our YouTube reels and the TikTok videos. I don't sit there every day and work on those things. You can schedule those things out. Hey, for most small business owners, that invoicing part, you can use products like QuickBooks or FreshBooks to do a lot of that processing for you. You can set up reminders. If somebody doesn't pay you, it'll shoot them a reminder. Hey, you still owe me money. There's great project management tools. We talked about this a few minutes ago. Asana, Trello. We actually use something called Zendesk. It's a lot more robust, but there are great tools out there that you don't have to spend a lot of money on to build an automated system. Hey, and listen, maybe you just want to do something with Google Sheets, or there's a product called Zapier. Zapier can tie different business pieces to our software together. And Bill Gates, the founder of Microsoft, said this: automation doesn't replace people, it releases them to do their best work. Hey, you want to do your best work? Let's follow the lead of Bill Gates, a pretty successful guy, started Microsoft. And what did he say? Automation doesn't replace people, it releases them. You want to be released to do your best work? You've got to use automation to break up some of that drudgery and some of that monotony. So go do that. Step number 4. I think this is a great idea. Batch your work. Automate your attention. What I'm talking about here is there are ways to batch your emails. We talked about this a few minutes ago. Batch those social posts. Batch your content. Maybe for this next couple weeks, you just spend 1 hour a week building that social post calendar. Another quote from Tim Ferriss said, being busy is not the same as being productive. I'll tell you an example of that. I used to run a credit union. I had a lady, she was in charge of our tower line. We called her the teller administrator. And this lady would come to me every week. We had these management meetings. She would say to me, Ralph, she says, I don't have time to get anything done. And I said, wait a second, you're working the same. She goes, no, I'm working this, I'm doing that. Well, when we really sat down and looked at what she was doing, and listen, this is a drudgery audit. We looked at what she was truly doing. Man, she was busy, but she wasn't accomplishing much. She was spending so much time doing routine stuff that she could really have delegated. We had a team of about 10 tellers, and she was handling all this stuff that nobody else wanted to do. Well, that wasn't effective as a manager. Let me tell you right now, you're not going to be effective as a small business owner if you don't find the tools, you don't find the delegations to help you build your business and stop doing this routine, mundane work, as Bill Gates said, that doesn't let you do your best work. Number 5 thing, connect your tools. I mentioned this a few minutes ago. There are some great integration tools. Zapier is one. We use Zapier to connect this software and that software. For example, when a client schedules through my Acuity scheduling, it automatically creates them in QuickBooks. When they come in for their appointment, the Zendesk talks to QuickBooks. We can tie all these things together. And instead of paying somebody or doing it myself, instead of sitting there and adding this email to this and doing that, I can eliminate that. It's one of the things that I did in my business. When a new lead come in, it automatically adds to the email list. It sends them a welcome email. It creates a task list. You can do the same thing. Find those tools to connect your software and build that automation. Stop trying to do everything yourself. Number 6 thing, automate follow. This is one of the things that a lot of people break down in. I've had many clients that say to me, Ralph, I send out these proposals, but I never hear from anybody. Well, have you sent them a reminder? Same thing with bill payments or people that owe you money. I had so many clients say, Ralph, my accounts receivable is growing and growing and growing. I said, okay, when's the last time you reached out to them? Well, I send them the invoice. Okay, well, if you're only sending them the invoice and you're not following up on that, listen, emails get lost. People get busy. There are ways within QuickBooks and other billing software to automate that thing. If you send out a proposal, have a plan where you automate a follow-up. Hey, did you get my proposal? Do you have any questions on that? Same thing with the appointment center. Our Acuity scheduling software does a great job of this. It reminds them about their appointment. We have it set up so that once they're done their appointment, it can ask them questions about their experience with us. As I said, QuickBooks reminders. You don't have to send those emails at those, I call them the awkward pay me emails. You can set that right up in QuickBooks and it'll just shoot those things out so that you're getting paid timely. People are aware that you've invoiced them and you don't have to sit there and send those, hey, can I get a check from you today? And the 7th step to this, it all comes down to reviewing and refining. So many times we put these automation tools together, We put them into place and they're like, hey, this is great, Ralph. It's doing this, and it's doing all these things to save me time, but then you don't realize there's little issues in that. So right now I'm going to encourage you, if you're going to do these things, schedule a monthly check-in and then go back and do that drudgery audit again. Ask yourself again, because you maybe only picked a couple things this month. Don't try to do it all at once. If you try to do it all at once, you're going to butt your head against the wall. That's not going to be a fun experience. But ask yourself again at the end of the month, what drains me? What's breaking me? Where can I improve things? Let me tell you right now, most successful small business owners are constantly reinventing their businesses. They're also reinventing themselves. They're looking at what can I do better this month? But you've got to take the time to do it. Listen, I'm going to take a little bit of a tangent here. So many small business owners say to me all the time, Ralph, I don't have time to get anything done. All I do all day long is put out fires. Well, the problem is when you're a firefighter, you're not a visionary for your business. And I talked about the different levels of business, from being the operator to being the manager to being the owner. Well, you got to find those things that drain you. You got to find those things that are breaking you. And you really have to find those things of where, like Bill Gates said, go use your talents to be impactful. Because automation builds momentum, and it builds it one win at a time. Think about this for a second. If you can just save 1 hour a day, and that's what I'm talking about here. I made a big promise at the beginning. What would you do with 6 extra weeks a year? So just hear me out for a second. If you could save 1 hour a day, that's 260 hours a year. Guess what that is? That's 6 weeks of your time, just 1 hour a day. Can you find that hour? Well, I'm going to encourage you to do that. Because once you do this, once you build that automation, you're going to be building stewardship, and better than that, you're going to be building a strategy, and you're going to feel immediate relief. Your stress is going to go down. Your joy is going to go up. There's going to be health benefits. You're going to get more rest. You're going to feel less burned out. And guess what? Your family's going to benefit as well. Maybe you're going to be able to be home for more family dinners. Your kids won't think you're that long-lost uncle. Who's this guy coming in the house? You're going to have a presence before your family, a presence before your other people that are important in your life, maybe even more client time, and you're going to build patience. And think about this, on the financial side, 10 to 20 hours saved a month, just an hour a day, can possibly save you thousands a year. Think about the proposals you can go out there and write. Think about the work that you could accomplish to build that business bottom line if you freed up that much time in your life. Because the truth is, and this is the big takeaway for today, automation doesn't just save you time, it gives you your life back. So my friend, let's talk heart to heart for a moment. You already know what it feels like to be stuck in the grind, the stress, the late nights, the missed family moments, the constant feeling that you're falling behind, even when you're working harder than ever. I have so many small business clients that may say, Ralph, I'm working harder than ever, man, but it doesn't look like it. So many people go into small business. You might be one of these people right now as you're watching or listening right now. Ralph, I went into small business for freedom. But that's not freedom. You're constantly worried. That's survival. And if you're honest, you know that manual process cycle is costing you more than just time. It's costing your relationships. It's costing you revenue. It's bottlenecking your business. It's stealing your joy. And I'm here to tell you right now, automation is the way out. But listen, I know it. It can feel overwhelming to even know where to start. You're like, Ralph, where am I going to find the time to do this? And that's the whole reason I created my one-on-one coaching. That's my one-on-one inside grit and growth business coaching. And here's what we'll do together. I want to really take a minute and just explain to you, if you want to work with me one-on-one, what we do together. We'll sit down together and we'll identify the exact tasks that are draining your time. We'll do that drudgery audit together. We'll look at, see, here are my time wasters. And then we'll talk about how to build the right tools that fit your business, not some cookie cutter approach. I'm going to work with you in your exact business. We're going to break it down piece by piece. And I'm going to walk step by step through implementing them until they work for you. I'm going to help you do that. And now imagine this. I just want you to take a minute and just imagine this. Imagine having your evenings back. Imagine dinner with family instead of that inbox. Imagine having time to pray, time to rest, to think about your business with new, renewed, and fresh energy. And bigger than that, yes, real growth. Because your systems are finally working for you instead of against you. And so much, my friend, that's what I want for you. So if you're tired of spinning your wheels and ready for freedom, if you're ready for clarity and you're ready for growth, I want you to take it to the next step, the next level today. Here's what you do. Just go to gritandgrowthbusiness.com/coaching. Again, that's gritandgrowthbusiness.com/coaching. And book your free discovery call today. It is a no obligation thing. We'll get on the phone. We'll do a Zoom call. You'll tell me about your business. I'll get a good feel for what you're doing. And I'll talk to you about how to unlock your next level and do that together. So I'm encouraging you again, go to gritandgrowthbusiness.com/coaching and book that discovery call with me today. And as I talked about earlier in the show, I created an action plan sheet for today's show. It's called the Drudgery Audit and Checklist. It's a jump start to your first automation. And you can go visit our website. Again, that's gritandgrowthbusiness.com/action. Again, that's gritandgrowthbusiness.com/action. And you can grab that action sheet so that you can start to automate things in your business and do that grudgery audit. You're going to be surprised at just what is taking up so much of your time. And I just want to end with this today. God's call is not busyness. It's stewardship. It's joy. It's finding growth in your business. And when you truly are able to automate, you're honoring his gift of time. And listen, I know this. You've got this, my friend. And I'm walking alongside of you right along this every week, every time we get together and we have these show meetings of grit and growth. Now, next week, we're going to talk about mastering, delegating, and hiring. I talked about it a couple weeks ago, just on the surface. We're going to dig in deeper with it. I'm going to tell you how to do it well and how to hire the right person. So I'm going to encourage you, subscribe to the show so you don't miss it. You can do that at gritandgrowthbusiness.com/follow. And don't forget, go download your action plan again. That's at gritandgrowthbusiness.com/action. So thank you for joining me this week. And as I always say, intentions are great, but go put these things into action because that's where you're going to see the results. God bless you, and I hope to see you again next week.